All right, let me go start my meet in the back and for my kids. You can click on that link and then you're good to go. If you want to click on that link, I'm about to share it right now. So I don't know if it'll show the screen. So there's permissions on. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Miss Tuff, and this is a Northside alumni coming to talk to you guys about her exciting career. Her career is actually environmental science, but as we talked about on earlier in the week, that in order to really get the environmental science, you have to have a strong foundation in the biology and understand the interconnectedness of living things. So without the biology, the environmental science doesn't really work. No matter what physicists try to tell you, we need the biology. So without further ado, this is Miss Eileen Castro from the Northside class of 2016 to discuss her career with y'all.
I have a presentation. I don't know if you want me to share screen or I can just talk about it.
I had to make you co-host. You're good now.
Okay. Okay, you can see just the presentation, correct?
Yes, just the presentation. Oh wait,
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So
Oh, wait, no, I
yeah,
see
so
the speaker
today,
notes. Hold on, I see speaker notes.
speaker notes.
There you go.
Okay.
Pull the other tab into a separate window and then just share that window. Share this window with the
perfect.
presentation, and then you'll have the other tab open. Nope. Now I see that. Wait, hold on.
I got it.
Okay. Perfect.
That's fine. I'll just do it without my notes. Oh, okay. So I will be talking to you guys about my career in academia. I am actually a grad student. So who am I and what do I do? My name is Eileen Castro, and I am a master's student who is in the middle of her field work right now. That means I just finished my first year of my master's. So during the summer, I will be doing research, and then I will go back in the fall and finish my second year and then graduate with a master's. Typically, the requirements of a master's degree, depending on what school you go to, what specific department you're in, you obviously need to do your coursework. then you might have to be a teacher's assistant or a research assistant. Plus, you have to write a thesis to graduate. Those are the big requirements. What is my research about? So I am actually in the geography department. I'm a geography student. I graduated from Northside in 2016, graduated from UT Austin in 2020, and then currently I am now at the University of Kentucky. But my main research falls under what we call environmental justice. And a short and sweet definition for environmental justice is a fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policy. Meaning that no matter who you are, what you look like, you should be able to decide environmental laws, regulations, policies in your community. I actually got interested in this topic after taking AP Environmental Science with Ms. Tuff. We were talking about fracking. Fracking happened in Fort Worth, and I did not like that. And that is how I got into environmental justice. So my thesis focuses on environmental justice, educational justice, and activism, and it is titled The Transformative Power of Environmental Justice Education, How Activism, Environmental, and Educational Justice Come Together in Houston, Texas. So my project is based in Houston, although I go to school in Kentucky. A little bit about my research. What my project will do is it will look at a specific environmental justice organization in Houston. They are called TEJAS. It stands for Texas Environmental Justice Advocacy Services. They have a partnership with a high school here in Houston named For High School. And TEJAS helps them develop curriculum that is very heavily environmental justice based. So it is very interdisciplinary, way more than whatever curriculum every other Houston high school uses. So some of the questions that my project will try and answer are how TEJAS helps FIR create that curriculum. What are some of the advantages or disadvantages that TEJAS and FIR face while creating this environmental justice curriculum? And then what are the opportunities to take this curriculum to other high schools in Houston, and then from Houston to a wider spread of Texas? But the reason I am focusing on Houston is because Houston is home to the Chip Channel. If you don't know what that is, it is a 50-mile channel where there are refineries placed. Refineries are the places that dig up the oil. So you will find Exxon, Chevron, Shell, those sort of things. And they are concentrated on the southeast of Houston. And the people that live there are mostly Black and Hispanic. So all these people that live near these refineries are breathing in these toxins that are coming out from the oil drilling. They have higher rates of asthma. And then they also have dirtier water than other parts of Houston that are more white because they don't live as close to this Chip Channel. So TEJAS is based near the Chip Channel. FIR is located near the Chip Channel. So all of this curriculum that I am trying to look at and investigate and find answers for will be localized to the Chip Channel. And so the students can understand why they are getting sick, why they're sicker than their white counterparts in other parts of Houston that have more money. So to do this research, I am going to do interviews with teachers from high schools and staff members from TEJAS. I will also analyze different curriculum to see what exactly is in this curriculum that is environmental justice based, what could be done better, what needs to be taken out. And then I will also do participant observation, which means I will just get to observe the everyday of the Tejas staff to see what other work they do. So that is the premise of my project and what I am working on this summer. In the fall, then I will go back to Kentucky and write a whole thesis, but that is a problem for later. Yeah. So other duties you have as a grad student include, you will probably have to be a teaching assistant or research assistant, depending on if the school gives you tuition free. So I get my tuition free, but I am required to be a teaching assistant. What that means is that there is a professor that teaches a class, and I also teach part of it. So the class is about 100 to 200 students, depending on the enrollment of that semester. There are 2 to 3 TAs per class. And so I get about 60 students each. I have to attend lecture with the professor. And then on Fridays, I get to teach my 60 students for 3 hours. And it's basically like reviewing what we went over in lecture that week, if they have any questions that they don't understand. And then I am also responsible for all their grading. So I am that first connection they get. So they come to me first. If I can answer their questions, then I send them to the professor. Keep in mind, you have to do this on top of all your coursework and all that reading. So it's very stressful. You don't have much free time. You don't necessarily have to be involved in your department, but it is how you get to meet people. It is highly encouraged. So myself, I am involved in the geography department. We have an annual conference, and it is called the DOPE Conference. It stands for Dimensions of Political Ecology. So all year we work on setting up this conference. It happens in the spring. People from all over the United States, even internationally, come. This past year, it was on Zoom because of COVID, but we are moving it to next March, in 2022 for next year. It'll be in person, so that's going to be exciting, but that is a lot of work as well. And then you are also, your department wants you to publish if you can. As a master's student, you don't have to publish if you can't. This is required more for a PhD student, a doctorate student, but I am in the process of getting published with one of my undergrad professors. We have been working on this for about 2 years now, and any day now it will be official. It'll be published. But we worked on this piece called Working Toward a Low Carbon American Association of Geographers meeting, what the greenhouse gases metrics tells us. And it's basically, we looked at how we can lower emissions when we fly to this annual geography meeting. So that was fun. There was a lot of math involved, and I don't like math, but I had to suck it up and do the math just so I can be published. So I'm excited for that. Yeah. So what comes next after your master's? Masters are 2 years. After your master's, you can decide to leave academia and you can get a job, or you can stay and pursue your PhD. Just keep in mind that there are pros and cons to academia. A pro is, if you love school, you get to read and do research in whatever it is that you're interested in. I love environmental science, environmental justice. So this is perfect for me. I love what I'm studying. But cons is, you do have to keep in mind that the academy was built for white men. So if you're not a white man, it is very hard to feel comfortable, to feel welcomed, even if your department is like very welcome and opening. Like my department is great, but I'm not the only woman of color, but I am the only Latina. So sometimes it is hard. I very much get imposter syndrome. I feel like I don't belong there. You know, like I'm a first generation. Like I come from the north side. My parents live there. So it is very difficult to feel like I belong at such a prestige place and that I'm actually going to graduate with a master's next spring. So it's a lot of give and take. There are days where I do just want to quit because it is very hard. Classes, you take about 3 classes per semester, and you have to read about 300 pages a week or more, depending on how hard your classes are. And then to imagine those 300 pages that you have to read, plus you're teaching these undergrads and they're emailing you constantly about work. And then you also try and have a social life, but it doesn't happen. So, but I do recommend keeping up with school if it is something that you want to do, because I love it, even though I am ragging on it a bit. But yeah, any questions for me? That is my presentation.
Okay, so since we're streaming on YouTube, you might hear your voice in the background.
Okay.
But some questions we have is, the first one is, what is the most interesting aspect of what you do in academia?
I think I love meeting people that I've read their stuff. So in academia, like anywhere, you have these big name celebrities, and there's people that everyone reads. And so some of your professors know them and you get introduced to them. So I think that's really exciting because I kind of like fangirl a bit. I'm like, oh my God, like I read this person, I think their work is super cool, and like I get to meet them now. So that's really nerdy, but I think that's really exciting. Or when now I read professors that I had in undergrad, and I'm like, oh my God, like that professor taught me. And, like I still think about that class that I took with that professor. So for me, that is the most exciting part, getting to meet other people in academia.
So you kind of touched on this briefly about how your role in teaching has changed, but how has COVID-19 really impacted you as a graduate student?
Yeah, so I came to this new school and I was not allowed on campus. So I teach everything from my apartment. I live by myself and I am on Zoom 24/7. So it's difficult to get these personal connections that I like to make with the students via Zoom when I don't see them in person. As an undergrad, I TA'd a bit, but it was a different type of TA, but I loved like getting that connection with the students, getting to know them, talking to them in person. So it's been really difficult to teach a whole year on Zoom and just never meet any of them in person. But in the fall, we are going back in person. It is also a bit scary because I've never done it, but it's going to be a learning curve.
So you're really excited to actually see what University of Kentucky, the campus looks like on campus next year?
Yes, and I have my own office, so I'm excited to see my office and just spend all my time in there.
You will.
Yeah.
And I just had to write a treatise. Okay. So what is some advice? So you sat in these exact same hallways, in these exact same classrooms, in not these exact same chairs, because we have new fancy chairs, as you can see. But what's some advice that you could give to students as they go on this journey that if they wanted to pursue a graduate degree in science?
I would definitely say don't be afraid to ask questions. I really did not know what I was getting myself into. Grad school is very different from your undergrad. You know, you go to college, you take different courses, and then that's it. But grad school is really you doing research. And I was definitely not prepared for the difference in amount of reading from undergrad to grad school. I, like there's no one else in my family or friends around me who have gone through this. I didn't know all the hard work it takes to just get to your proposal. Before you even start writing your thesis, you have to create a proposal of what you plan to do, and present this to your advisor who you're working closely with. But even just that is such hard work. I just did not expect it. So make sure you ask questions and really understand what your program is going to ask of you. Because if you're a first gen like me, it's a completely new world and you will not know, and it'll just hit you in the face.
As a first gen student, what kind of resources were available to you to kind of help you through this journey?
So I definitely relied a lot on at UT Austin. We had a career service, and they had like a grad school person. She was really helpful with applications. And then I was really close to some of my professors in the sustainability studies department until they would help me through those questions. But it's really just talking to your professors, not being afraid, which at first I really was afraid to talk to them because I am a little shy and just like a little ball of nerves. And then you have to think about, you need around 3 recommendation letters. So you need to know 3 professors really well if you want to make sure they write really good recommendation letters for you, which I'm sure that some of you guys are doing that if you're seniors going into college. But it just feels like the stakes are so much higher once you're applying to grad school because classes are so small. Like my class was only 11 people. And if I remember correctly, 80 people applied to the geography department in my year. They accepted about 15, but only 11 accepted the offer. And so my cohort was 11, and that is the biggest cohort they had in a while. The cohort before them was 8 people. So it's not like when you go to college and the classes, your cohort is 5,000 or something. The stakes are higher and it is really competitive, and you just have to make sure that everything they ask for in the application is top notch.
One of my professors as an undergrad told me that it is true that C's get degrees, but they're not going to help you for grad school.
Exactly. Yeah, I did get a lot of C's like my first and second year, but then after that, I just A's, baby.
Yeah, when you get into
So
those major classes, it's really important that your major classes have A's.
Yeah, and that's what really helped me.
Really the A's. So was this always the career path you wanted to take, or was there other things that you thought you were going to 5 years ago when you were leaving this campus? Was this where you thought you would be from 5 years later, or was there other things that you thought you were going to do but you changed course, and what helped you? What made you change course?
So when I was a senior at Northside, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I liked history, I liked the environmental science class, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do in college. And then as we went through the AP environmental science class, I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is what I love. But I also really liked history, so I decided to double major. But leaving Northside, what I thought I wanted to do was environmental law. So my plan was to go to UT Austin, double major in sustainability studies, and history, and then go to law school and focus on environmental law. After, I want to say, my sophomore year of college, I talked to some law students at UT Austin, and I realized that was not what I wanted to do. Law school was not for me. It sounded horrible. I wanted to cry just from this student telling me all of the things they had to do. So then I was kind of at loss. Like, that had been the dream for the longest. As a little kid, I also wanted to be a lawyer, but it wasn't until like senior year where I decided it was going to be environmental law. So I was very devastated for a long time because I realized it wasn't for me. And so I sat there, and then that is when I read a piece by a professor at the University of Oregon. Her name is Laura Pulido, and she is the first like Latina geographer I had ever read, and she introduced me to the concept of environmental justice, and I fell in love with it. And then I knew that I had to go to grad school and keep exploring this topic. But yeah, the goal was environmental law, and then I realized I was not cut out for that. Yeah.
So when you're done, what do you see as your next steps?
I definitely do. I need a break from school after this. So I will not be getting my PhD after, because I feel like I'm going through a burnout as I went straight from high school to college, and then from my undergrad to my master's. So I am definitely looking into working with organizations similar to Tejas. My goal is to work with communities of color, like the one I grew up in, Northside, the one I am studying in Houston, and making sure that their voices are heard and that they are not getting stomped on by all these environmental injustices. And that is my goal, to keep working with communities like that.
My Zoom is on my back computer and my Meet is on the other one so that the mics don't like interfere with each other. What was the best advice you have received along your path?
Like from anyone? This is hard. Definitely, I think this is gonna sound really cheesy, but for my grandma, she has always been a rock, and she's always told me to do what I want to do and not let me be held back by my family. Because sometimes families, they want to see you prosper, but at the same time they're like, "Oh, you're leaving us? Don't do that." I'm grateful my parents haven't done that, but my grandma always told me that to make sure that I was not being held back by anyone, and that I do what I want to do, and I still live by those words.
Okay, so let me think. There's another question. If you could have changed one thing on your path, what was it? What would it have been?
I think I definitely would have applied to more grad schools. I applied to 2 just because I was scared, and not that I don't love the place where I'm at, because I love the department. I love the friends I've come to know. The professors are super great. But it's also like, wow, I'm living in Kentucky, so much fun. And I would just have to, and then my advisor, the person that I'm working with closely, she doesn't do exactly the same work that I am trying to do. She does similar work. So it's kind of hard for her to read my things and then give me advice because they don't align 100%. So I wish I would have done more research and see if there was other professors somewhere else that did work that aligned with my research more closely, so I could have had a more helpful advisor. Not saying that she's not helpful because she's great, but it is sometimes difficult to be on the same page.
Well, so the advice you have for these kids.
Yeah, just follow whatever you're interested in, because if you decide to go to college and go into the med field because it's going to make you money and you're not passionate about it, you don't love it, you're going to hate it, you're not going to do well. So just make sure that whatever you do, it doesn't have to be college. Whatever you do, it is something that you love and that you know you're going to be happy doing it. Because if you're not, then you're just going to be miserable.
So I love that that was your advice, because guys, if you remember, nearly every person we've met with these past 2 weeks has told you that the most important thing is to do something you love. And I can tell you, there are days that like my job feels like work. And those are days where I have meetings, where I have paperwork, where I have grades due, which Eileen will remember was like my least favorite part of my job. But on days that I can show up, I can close the door and we can just do science and we can just teach, I don't even feel like I worked. Like I go home completely refreshed. But one days that we have, like yesterday, we had those tours, I was so tired, I went home and slept. So it's really important, you guys, that you follow your passion and that you don't just do what's expected of you. You do what's going to be best for you. And there's going to be, I challenged Eileen all the time when she told me I'm not going to go into law. What? And I challenged them because I want to make sure that the reasons you're making your decision aren't because you're afraid or you don't know, but you're afraid of the unknown, but because it's truly something you're not wanting or truly something that you are wanting. So make sure that you heed that advice, because you've heard it over and over and over again the past 2 weeks. And to have someone who is sitting in your shoes just 5 years ago have the same advice, I think is really important. Okay, so I am gonna say thank you, Eileen. We appreciate you.
Of course.
And if you guys have any questions for her, please just pass them on to your biology teachers and they will pass them on to me. And then I have an excuse to talk to Eileen, which I love.
Yes.
So please give me questions. All right. So you guys have a great day and thank you.